So we're going to take a look at Viola Lee Blues with a focus on Jerry's improv approach on the song part, and we're not going to look at note for note or how to play or be just like Jerry, but more the improv tactics of what he was using, especially in those early days of the Dead. And let's start off with the foundation of the VMFG. I've never said that out loud, but what I call the vocal melody for guitar. Doesn't have the best ring to it, but something that's critical to Jerry's playing and my own personal playing is something I really focus a lot on as well. So let's start with that and we'll build our way up. Let's hear how that sounds in the context. All right, well, first off, let's orient ourselves. What is going on musically? What key? So this is essentially a blues. So it's in the title, but that doesn't mean it is definitely going to be a blues. In this case, it sort of is. It's just a blues with a twist. It's in G, right? And it doesn't have the traditional blues turnaround of a 5-4-1, which in this case would be a D, C, G. They substitute an F for that D. Otherwise, it's still pretty much a blues, and it's got that blues sound. So while we're in G, and it's focusing around a G7, not just a major G, and that's just putting in a flat 7, in this case an F, gives you that sound. And if you're familiar with the Dead, then you know that this is a huge part of their sound, is that dominant sound, which gives you the scale mixolydian that goes with it, which is the only difference between G major scale and a G mixolydian is a flat 7. So in G major you have a major 7, in this case F sharp. We have a flat 7 in F in this case. But this tune doesn't really focus, and Jerry specifically didn't really focus so much on just playing that mixolydian sound. He did more of a blues thing, so it's more of blues scale or just a G minor pentatonic. Same thing, it's just that, the blues scale has that blue note right here. Minor pentatonic doesn't, but it doesn't really matter. In general, it's not about, if you're thinking about, you're trying to figure out what's going on in this song, that song, it's not like an exact formula. There's no recipe like you're baking something to follow. It's just, sounds and scales and things are just attempts to kind of figure out what's going on, and sometimes it's more clear cut, this is happening, and other times it's kind of more wide open and open to interpretation. So keep that in mind. So this is what it sounds like if I just played up and down the mixolydian scale with the track without trying to manipulate it and articulate it in any way, just straight up and down mixolydian versus minor pentatonic, and hear which one kind of fits the sound of the vibe of this tune more. So of course they both work, and the first one fits in more, but the second one, the minor pentatonic, I think fits the overall kind of vibe of the sound. It's got that clashing because you have that B flat which clashes, but we can use a little bit more. We're going to look at that a little bit later. But now back to the vocal melody. Now they got that established of what's kind of musically just the gist of it, what's going on. You may have thought I wasn't playing the whole melody, I was just playing part of it, and that's what typically I've heard Jerry do in this tune. He didn't play the whole thing, he just kind of played that beginning part over the G, which goes 4 bars long, and he's just playing that minor pentatonic right here, just kind of sometimes holding these two down, sometimes individually, it's very loose, and it doesn't have to even be always note for note, this exact thing, but it's just giving the general idea. So one more time, and then a lot of times the second solo he would do the same thing, but he'd just do it up an octave, and you could play it over here, but you just do the same thing, just up, way up here, same kind of shape, right? You just do it twice. And that was it, And then moving on to the next part, going into those C chord, the 4 chord, he would often, you could just stick with the minor pentatonic, or he'd play the C major pentatonic with that. And then also over the F C. So let's give a listen to how that would sound. So if you're familiar with I Know You're a Rider, it's the same thing, that F, C, right? And then it goes to D. So in this case, we're going back to G. But Jerry would often do the same thing there, and that tune where over that F, C, just play the major pentatonic to go along with it, and that really stresses those chords. So you don't have to even know it all over the place. Just grab, okay, if you're playing in this position here, just grab your F right here, right when it happens. You can just do those 4 notes and really slide out of those notes, and then C. You can just do the same thing, just over one string, and then back to the G, right? It's as simple as that. And those same things true when it happens before with the C, hangs on a little longer, 2 bars of that, which is kind of like 1.5 bars. The second one's a measure of 2, goes quick. But the same thing here, just stress that. Now another thing he would do is over both that spot and the quick FC part, is sometimes just play the chord too. So if he's he's up here, he's doing the, or maybe up here, just he plays some little pentatonic thing, and then plays the rest of that chord, that F chord, C. So he's grabbing pieces of the chord, and that helps outline what's happening, establish, okay, these changes. It draws more attention to it. If you want to pull back and not draw as much attention, you can just keep going with that G minor pentatonic. That works fine too. My earlier days of improvising, I used to always think everything had to match up, and when I started learning how to play jazz and went to school for it, it was like, whoa, it would give me a lot of headaches, because I thought I had to really keep up with every single chord in jazz. It's just changing constantly, and you don't really have to. There's many ways around it, and in this case, if it's too much for you to do those pentatonics to follow along, just stick with the G minor pentatonic the whole time. It's totally fine. It can still work as well. So let's look at the last improv tactic, and then we'll finish up with just how we can mix and match the Mixolydian and the minor pentatonic scales as well. And this is playing a repetitive lick at the end of each solo. So at the end of the solo sections, he's just up here playing this minor pentatonic thing again, going, sometimes bending that, sometimes just playing these 3 notes, just over and over, very monotonous, repetitive thing, and sometimes again, just adding that little bit of bend. It's just bending that to the same note, so sometimes it's there, sometimes it doesn't have to be there, and that's really it. But that's a big part of okay, every time ending that solo, and then they all build, and then it brings it back down. And the one other thing he does here, and he can do this anytime throughout the whole tune in the big jam part too, is pick closer to the bridge. You listen to the different sound. That's what gives you that different sound. It sounds like it might be an effect, but it's just picking closer to the bridge. Just slowly moving it there. Very, very cool thing. Again, you can do that anytime throughout. And this stuff, when we're just looking at the blues kind of progression part of it, all the stuff over the G, chord can be used during the jam, because the jam is just jamming on that G, the G7, that speeds up, and that's it. So it's just, it's all the same stuff, So with that in mind, what else can we do? Looking again at that Mixolydian, just because this is more of the sound, as I'm saying, doesn't mean you can't use that. And really the only difference here is we have a minor third in the minor pentatonic and a major third in the Mixolydian. We also have a major second in the Mixolydian that isn't in the minor pentatonic, and a major 6. So you have 3 different notes, but you can add those in. If you just add them all in, if you want to add the blues note as well too, look at all these notes, right? If I do it all on the same string especially, you've got G, A, B flat, B, C, D flat, D. All those right in a row. That sounds a little weird if you just play them all at once, but if you just mix and match, you know, kind of. Now you can see, okay, it starts to fit the sound. So experiment around with playing up and down Mixolydian in one position, and then also the minor pentatonic in one position. You know, there's all kinds of exercises you can do, like, you know, go up one, go down the other, vice versa, mix and match, really get familiar with the two, and then start just grabbing, you know, just one note. So if you're just focusing on the minor pentatonic, but throwing that major third, and maybe you bend up to it, maybe up here, so you're not actually playing that fret, or right here, bending to the flat 7 by the flat 6, which is from the Mixolydian scale. And that starts to give you a whole new sound and really open things up, especially during that jam part if you're looking for more ideas, because it's a long solo to you know, keep things fresh. So hopefully that helps, and if you got your guitar, you want to try this stuff out yourself, of course, I've always got the backing track. You can try it right over here. Head over to it now, and hopefully you'll have fun with that, and I'll see you in one of the next videos.